And a TGIF, everyone. Welcome into the First Call podcast, representing First Bet and Express Bet. He's Scott Shapiro. I'm Jeremy Plonk. We're only talking three tracks, but boy, you get a big three here when New York, California, and Kentucky are all rocking on big days. Closing weekend at Saratoga. You've got Del Mar's Pacific Classic Day on Saturday. And of course, day 2 of 7 at Kentucky Downs. Of course, we got 2 racing days this weekend at Kentucky Downs, but $3.5 million up for grabs in the Nashville Derby. Scott, you want to get a little piece of that?
I would love a big piece of that, and I understand why they show up for it. It's a astronomical purse, especially for what it is, and drew an intriguing field, as we'll talk about a little later. But to your point, very good racing throughout the land.
Big Classic Division weekend. When you look at the Pacific Classic, of course, when you're into the Breeders' Cup, hosted at Del Mar this year. Sunday, Jockey Club Gold Cup. Last week, just 6 days in the rearview mirror now, the Travers Stakes, Scott. And when you talk about the Classic Division, it's about sovereignty right now, I think. As good as the older horses are, the favorite for the Classic, if you put up early wagering right now, would be sovereignty. What does anybody have to do this weekend to put them ahead of sovereignty, or can it even be done to you?
That's a tough question. I think the first key would be for a horse like Fierce. I think maybe if Nisos would prove that 1.25 miles is his thing and just take it to the field that we'll talk about in the Pacific Classic, that might put him into the same category. Maybe, obviously, without the fanfare of the Triple Crown and the Travers. But maybe that, because I think it would be very difficult for Fierceness, obviously journalism, to go in, to become the favorite over him after this weekend. And I don't really see anybody in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. No disrespect to that field, which is great. Maybe Mind Frame with an absolute dominant effort.
Sierra Leone, defending Classic champion in that one. We'll talk about the Sunday big race. The Jockey Club Gold Cup is part of this weekend's podcast as well. For those of you watching on X or on YouTube, be sure to like, share this out, comment in the comment section. Help us continue to grow the audience for the First Call podcast. For those of you listening on our traditional audio channels, I'll run down the list of 8 races Scott and I are going to handicap over the next half hour or so. We're going to start things off at Saratoga on Saturday, where the Spinaway and the Flower Bowl are co-featured. First up will be the Flower Bowl in race number 10, the Spinaway right after that in the 11th. To Del Mar we go on Pacific Classic Day. Stakes up and down the lineup there. We're going to look at 3 of them, the Del Mar Mile, the Green Flash for the Turf Sprinters, and of course the Pacific Classic. To Kentucky Downs, we go on Saturday. Again, that'll be day 2 of 7 of the meet. The Kentucky Downs Turf Sprint and the Nashville Derby, the 2 features that we will handicap on this podcast. Then we'll go to Sunday's Classic Division race, the Jockey Club Gold Cup, one of the most historically important races on the racing calendar. Finally has a field that feels like an old Jockey Club Gold Cup again, but we'll take a look at that one. Want to remind you, if you like to play handicapping tournaments, and it doesn't cost much to do so, just $40 to enter the Fun in the Sun handicapping tournament, $100 in live wagers on the final 5 races at Saratoga and the first 5 races at Del Mar each Saturday will put you into the final table with about $15,000 added in prize money. The final table for Fun in the Sun comes up this Monday on Labor Day. There is one more chance for 5 people to qualify for the final table. Week number 7, the last round of weekly play, Fun in the Sun. Again, handicap the final 5 at Saratoga, the first 5 at Del Mar on Saturday. And for $40, you can make your way into the final table on Monday. Again, with about $15,000 in added money. Big chance there. Fun in the Sun handicapping tournament this weekend. Be sure to play it at expressbet.com. We've got a couple promos to let you know about before we get to handicapping. On Saturday at Del Mar, there's a $5,000 exactathon. Take down 6 exactas on the Pacific Classic Day card, and you'll get your share of $5,000. $2,500 to those who hit 6 or more exactas. $2,500 to the or 5 exactas. So you only need 5. $2 minimum on the exacta plays at Del Mar on Saturday. Again, $2,500 to those shared amongst those who hit 5 or more, and the player who hits the most exactas will take home $2,500. So the $5,000 exactathon. I know Shap's going to have a blog up for you in a little bit today for that exactathon. Some suggested plays there at Del Mar, and then also Sunday and Monday we've got a late pick 4 hit and split for Saratoga. Final 2 cards of the year at the Spa. Sunday, Jockey Club Gold Cup Day, and then Monday, hopeful closing day. 2,500 added into the late pick 4 hit and split. Take down that, you get your pari-mutuel winnings plus a share of $2,500 each day, Sunday and Monday for Saratoga. We're ready to go here and get into handicapping. We'll go to the Spa on Saturday. Start things off in race number 10 for the Flower Bowl. Flower Bowl, named for the 1956 Delaware Handicap winner, went on to foal His Majesty and unfortunately passed away after foaling complications. One of the top broodmares in her early broodmare career, really influential. The Flower Bowl, 1 mile and 3/8 on the turf. This is Chad Brown territory. He's won the Flower Bowl 8 times, but scan the past performances, there's not a Chad to be found, which is one of the major upsets when you talk about a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. Filly and Mare Turf is Chad Brown country, and he's got nothing in here, but McGlow Clamont's got 3, Scott.
He sure does now, and what a summer it's been for Miguel, who's continued to roll at a well over 20% clip, and he's got 3, and he's got the favorite in here, La Mahena, 6-year-old mare who seems to be doing as well as ever, at least based on her effort over the yielding going in the Glens Falls last time out, beating a couple of her rivals in here. You know, does it make a ton of sense for a 6-year-old mare to continue to get better? But I don't see any signs she's going to regress majorly in this spot. Third off the bench, only start over this course was a good one. Honorable mention the number 2 Amber Cascade for Maker stretching out on the turf for the first time, but I thought La Mahena was going to be a very tough customer in here.
She's won 2 straight. The Glens Falls was just a no doubt about it performance. Let's go back and take a look at that one.
Beleza lurking in third, no shows. Sammy Joe, top of the stretch. Long ago, digs in on the inside of La Mahana. La Mahana, though, has the momentum and takes command with a 16th of a mile to go and starts to show her class. La Mahana striding away effortlessly. This turns into an 8-length victory in the Glens Falls. Tremendous.
You don't win many turf races like that. That's a spread eagle dirt performance on the turf. Couple new faces in here, though. Marksman Queen, winner of the Dick Memorial last time out at Delaware Park for trainer Grant Motion. You're going long on the turf with Motion. That's usually a pretty good category for him. Then you've got Be Your Best coming off a win in the Gamely, 2 starts back. Third in the Beverly D last out for trainer Safi Joseph. This one might want a really firm turf course. The weather has been good this week in Saratoga. Turf should be on the firmer side unless we get rain overnight. So Be Your Best should like this kind of turf course.
Yeah, I think it rained overnight Thursday night into Friday. Not sure if that'll matter all that much because it's supposed to be very nice and the course needed some. But, you know, Be Your Best really ran her race in the Gamely. She kind of runs the same race every time. It just matters who she's against and if she makes the lead or gets a good trip or not. But very consistent. But I don't think she's quite at the level of what we saw from the Clement mare La Mahena last time out. I think Be Your Best a slight bit vulnerable in here coming off the 2 grade 1s and then the Beverly D effort.
She did win the Pegasus World Cup Turf earlier this year. That's Be Your Best. Field of 8 in the Flower Bowl. If you're looking intra-race, it's La Mahana and the rest maybe. So Exactas, Tri-Supers, probably not so much in an 8-horse field. Maybe you're looking to the Exacta, but you could also look at a potential daily double races 10 to 11 in here because you've got the Spinaway next up on the program at Saratoga, and that's where we're going to head for the Spinaway. They've been running the Spinaway since 1881. It's named for the 1880 winner of the hopeful Spinaway. The filly beat the boys in 1880. The next year she got a race named for. Scott, trivia question. What else happened in 1881? U.S. history for $100.
Oh, man. Now you're going to make me look bad. If it was something but U.S. history, it's not that's post-Reconstruction, which is not my forte. 1881. Man, you know, go ahead.
No, I used to get Siegel on these too. He'd be like, hey, we didn't prepare for this.
I love it, but 1881 is not my wheelhouse, although I just listened to a whole book on the presidents. I should know this, but tell me what we got.
The shootout at the OK Corral. Who do you got, Doc Holliday or Wyatt Earp?
See, I was never going to get that. I'll admit it. I was not going to get it. I mean, it's good. It's legit. But that wasn't in my bud. But
you were not expected to get that either. How about some more recent history, though? Immersive won this race last year, went on to win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. And look, we've seen good ones win this race over the years, from Ruffian to Flanders, Ashado. Last year with a champion. So do we have a champion in this year's Spinaway? We'll find out. 7 Furlongs, Grade 1 company. Again, it is race number 11 on the card. Who do you like in this one?
Well, I think the tote board is going to have 2 fillies taking the lion's share of the money. Mythical, who's 3 for 3. We kind of know what she is at this point. Mm-hmm. It's pretty fast, coming off of a win in the Adirondack. 27 days later will return. And Tommy Joe, who I thought was one of several vulnerable first-time starters to an extent in that maiden race on July 26th, and was taught a quick lesson when she cruised by a horse that I like very much that day, the very well-bred daughter of Into Mischief, a Spendthrift Farm homebred, draws to the outside again. I thought she's one of the more impressive winners of the meet in terms of debut 2-year-olds, which is one of the reasons we look to Saratoga so often. Right. And clearly, to me, she's been pointing to this spot since, where you look at Mythical, you could argue that maybe she hasn't, just kind of running into the next race when it comes up. I like Tommy Joe here at probably a pretty short price.
Kendrick Carmouche riding for Todd Pletcher here. Don't be alarmed by all these jockey carousels on Saturday at Saratoga, with big money on the line at Kentucky Downs, with the Pacific Classic running on the West Coast. The Spa Jockey Colony is not what you're used to seeing on Saturday, so a lot of riders out of town amongst the big names. But Tommy Joe under John Velasquez was a very impressive debut winner. Here is that race from back in July.
Vadra is pressed by Bella Rosa through a quarter that went in 22 3/5 seconds. Here is Tommy Joe on the outside, ranging into contention very willingly. And just behind them, Tennessee Belle is in 4th. Come On Get Happy moves up on the inside of Academia, and Immortalized is out of last in the blue. They're at the top of the stretch, and Tommy Joe has run right by, taken command, and opening up at the 8th pole. Tommy Joe by 4. Academia, Tennessee Belle moving in tandem after this leader, who is well in front. Tommy Joe, Johnny V and Todd Pletcher teaming up. A resounding win for Tommy Joe, handwritten by 4 lengths. Tennessee Belle 2nd, Academia 3rd, and Immortalized finish 4th.
Runner-up Tennessee Belle came back to win that one. Todd Pletcher, the Wyatt Earp of this Spinaway Stakes. He's won it 6 times. He'll try to pass Dwayne Lucas, his former mentor, as the all-time winningest trainer in this race. Both Lucas with 6 and Pletcher with 6 wins in the Spinaway. We'll see how it turns out. Tommy Joe, top pick for Scott. I agree with him there in race number 11. Now we switch gears and we head west for the big racing card of the year at Del Mar. From Saratoga to the West Coast we go, and the Turf and Surf meet at Del Mar for Pacific Classic Day. We're going to start things off with the Del Mar Mile in race number 5. We're also going to look at the Green Flash for the Turf Sprinters at race number 9. And then the headliner of the Pacific Classic is race number 10. Let's go to the Del Mar Mile, kind of a race that we've seen before this year in Southern California. The Kilroe Mile, 1, 2, 3 finishers from back in March at Santa Anita, all in this race. The Del Mar Mile, of course, a mile grade 2 company here. These horses will be aiming towards the Breeders' Cup Mile, where things get much, much tougher when you start bringing horses not only from all around the country, but all around the world. But which one of these locals might punch their ticket towards the Breeders' Cup, Scott?
Well, I think I just talked about a 2-horse race in terms of the tote board at Saratoga. I'm not sure if it'll be on the tote board with a couple of others likely to take money, but I have a lot of respect for number 4, Formidable Man, coming off the win in the Eddie Reed, and King of Gosford coming off the win in the Shoemaker Mile and been on the bench since then. Both of them have outstanding chances. I give a slight edge to King of Gosford. But there's a horse I like in here that's going to be a much bigger price, and deservingly so. He's a lot less accomplished. But it's number 5, Suchet, a son of Cloth of Stars. First time I've discovered that one. Stands for 4,000 over in Ireland. But this one came over from France for Horonis Racing and Sadler. And what I think was clearly a prep for this race. It was run like that, still almost won, no speed early. And what really is noteworthy to me is he gets Paco Lopez, who has been as hot as any jockey around.
Yeah.
I know David Cabrera has been super hot where you've been following at Remington Park, but Paco is riding so well. Big chance for him to prove himself out west. I think Suchet at a big price is worth including and maybe worth betting to win.
Speaking of hot riders, for the last 5 years, Del Mar Mile went to one Flavian Pratt. He is back west. He's on King of Gosford. 3-time winner of this race, Phil D'Amato's got a couple in here. He'll look for a 4th win. King of Gosford, one of those horses that is consistently in these miles on the West Coast. And we look back to Formidable Man, the Mike McCarthy trainee. This is a horse on the undercard for McCarthy's big horse. And I like to see that a lot of times. You see these horses get good at the same time. They go in and out of form and a lot of times in the same cycles. A lot of the undercard races are on the cards with the big races that day. And you think back to that Kilroe Mile Day back in March. Rispoli and Formidable Man was a winner there, just warming up for the San Felipe win, where really it was a breakout performance for Journalism that day. Maybe they double up again with Journalism as the headliner a little bit later on the card. We go back to that race, the Kilroe Mile in March, Formidable Man. Since then, he's won the Eddie Reed over the turf course. But again, this race back in March was pretty much a lot of these same horses. Sans your French invader in here, Suchet. Let's go back to the Kilroe Mile and see how that one turned out.
With a quarter of a mile to go, Cabo Spirit and Zio Joe. Zio Joe comes to Cabo Spirit at the top of the stretch. Air Force Red looking for racing room. Formidable Man is coming through along the inside. Then Neat Mi Hermano Ramon still last at the 8th pole. Zio Joe, Cabo Spirit, nose and nose, Formidable Man. Almendares is coming with big strides. Here's Formidable Man. Formidable Man. What a ride from Rispoli.
You know, the top 4 in that race are back. I mentioned the top 3, but Almendares rally for 4th in there as well. So if we get the same kind of finish, 4 of them within a length of the wire, we're in for a treat. Maybe 5 with Suchet sneaking in there at a price. I think you'll get a good number on that one for trainer John Sadler. He's had some big Pacific Classic days in the past. Would be no surprise to see a big day for John Sadler. Another horse who's had big Pacific Classic days in the past is Motorious. He's won the Green Flash twice. He's going for a 3-peat. And we moved to race number 9 on the card Saturday at Del Mar with this 5-furlong turf sprint. Look, this is the same conditions we're going to see in the Breeders' Cup turf sprint later in the year. A Del Mar Breeders' Cup turf sprint, different than a lot of the others around the country. So 5/8 of a mile, very tight turns, a short stretch. This can be a specialist kind of race, and Motorious certainly specializes in it at Del Mar.
He sure does, and he's going to be a tough customer in here. The 7-year-old gelding 3 for 4 with a second as his only defeat, and it came in the race you mentioned, the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint last year, where he missed by just a neck at 12-1. You know, he's just a tough horse for me to get super excited about betting at short prices because we just don't see a lot of them. Plus, he needs to work out a trip. Now, when he does work out a trip, he is a tough customer, but could I make the case that he's got only 1 race this year? He had a couple last year before the win in the Green Flash. Yes, I thought he got a favorable setup to an extent last year. So I can't pick him. I can't bet him to win. I'm not going to give him out to the beautiful first call audience. I like a big price in number 4, Sorrento Sky, to run a big race. Obviously, another D'Amato going to have his hands full to outkick the stablemate, Antonio Frace, who goes to that one. But I think this horse is going to get a much better trip than he did last time out over this turf course, which once again was likely a prep to an extent for this. I'm sure they wanted to win the race, but it just wasn't set up for him that day. It was a 5-horse field. They ran 1-2 around the track, 2 of his rivals in here, in Boss Selly, who I give a big shot to, and Virat as well. I just think he's going to be in a good spot early along the inside, but not on the lead, and just going to get a little more contention to run at it on a day where the rails will not be out, and that will give horses from off the pace that much better of a chance.
Umberto Rispoli could be sitting on a big day. Let's go back to that prep July 31st in Allowance Company. Boss Sully, who's in here in that race, as you had mentioned. And here is Sorrento Sky in what Scott says was a tune-up for the big one.
Virat and Boss Sully have gone 22.64 for that opening quarter mile. They're a length and a half in front of a 3-wide Sumter. Then it's Sorrento Sky and Daniel's Magic on the rail. They're into the stretch. Virat trying to shake loose here. Boss Sully is still a half length behind with 1 furlong to run. Sorrento Sky is third, trying to close the gap. Then Daniel's Magic. They're down to the last 16th, and Boss Sully grabs the front. And Boss Sully is gonna do it. It was tight for second, either Virat or Sorrento Sky, and Daniel's Magic was fourth.
Virat also part of this field, so key race there. Go back in the full handicapping. If you're a trip handicapper, common races where several horses come out of the same race, to me, are a good time saver. You want to go back and watch those races. When you're trying to figure out which race replays do I want to watch in a race, common opponents, I think, are a very good one where you can knock out several horses at once, and you might be able to find some excuses like Scott did of why you can flip the result, and that's where you find value as a horse player. No Nay Hudson in this race coming west for Wesley Ward. This horse was in the Green Flash last year, ran third, beaten 3/4 of a length. No Nay Hudson drawn well in post number 2. And one filly I want to talk about in here because without the last race, she might be favored. Queen Maxima looked like a world beater in her previous races. She romped on Oaks Day at Churchill Downs in the Unbridled Susan. Prior to that, just like hand ride victories as easy as you could this winter at Santa Anita. I have no idea why Jeff Mullins and company sent her a mile last time, but it obviously soiled the form. She did not fire at all in that 2-turn mile. Back to 1 turn, 1 shot to pop. I think she's going to make a run in here. I know Del Mar's not necessarily her best course, but I like Queen Maxima in a race where she's going to be a better price than she was because she's been hammered at the windows every time. But that last race, I think, helps the price on her a little bit. Tough post out wide like Motorius.
She definitely makes a lot of sense in here. With the rails being not out, that will give her more of a shot. I'd be really concerned. You could toss the last race. Very weird spot. Had some trouble, but it was a restricted. Yeah, not the most sensical thing. The 5 furlongs might be a little shorter than she wants, but she's got a lot of talent and deserves to have a shot against the boys in the spot.
All right, let's go to the Pacific Classic on Saturday, race number 10 at Del Mar. Feature race of the week around the country. It's our Express Bet race of the week. You can check out my analysis at expressbet.com and be sure to sign up for the newsletter with First and Express Bet each week. You get that race of the week sent in the email newsletter to your inbox. 1.25 miles for the Pacific Classic, inaugurated in 1991. Bobby Frankel dominated the early history of this race. Bob Baffert since has taken the baton and won it 7 times. He's got Nysos in here, who really is a step short of being perfect in his career. He came up just the neck short in that melee finish at Churchill Downs in the Churchill Downs handicap. That was back in May off a 14-month layoff, I believe, a 15-month layoff in that race where he just got beat as the favorite. Mind frame banishing Nysos, everybody on the wire in that race. Probably the race of the year as far as the outcome and the talent in that race to this point. Nysos is tough, Scott. And given the fact that I saw his workouts at First TV, folks want to go back and check those workouts. He looks as good in the morning as any horse in any race this year coming up to it. I mean, he is training like a monster. If this race was 1 mile and a 16th, I would make him 2-5. If this race was 1 mile and an 1/8, I'd make him 6-5. But at 1.25 miles, this becomes the big question because that's the wall that a lot of horses hit. They can't get 1.25 miles. I have no idea if this horse who's run basically 7 furlongs to 1 mile and a 16th at this point, can he get the 10 furlongs and get it against top-class competition? That's the whole question of this year's Pacific Classic, in my estimation.
Well, it certainly is with this colt. Nysos taking on the second or the toughest field of his career. To your point, to add to the Churchill Downs, what you see on the page, Bookham Dano was in that photo at the wire as well, the best sprinter in the country, perhaps. So this horse is legitimate. There's really no doubt about that. It is the distance. And I think Bob Baffert might have kind of caught a little surprised that he's getting journalism and fierceness in this race. It would have been a great test. He probably would have felt great about his chances against neither of those in the rest of this field, going 1.25 miles. Now he's got to take on 2 serious runners. He'll get a good feel for it. I have concerns about the distance just based on what the way Bob has managed his horse. I know he was his Derby horse per se back in February 3rd, but, Barnes was. There's been a lot of, horses that have been proven distance worthy. 3 straight starts. I mean, the build up, the way he's built this horse up, doesn't scream that he thought this was going to be a classic distance horse, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it by him. And it's just interesting. What is the trip going to be for him? Is he going to be able to sit 3 lengths off, 2 lengths off, and still finish at 1.25 miles? That's where I think, as at least the morning line favorite, I side against him from a wagering perspective, but super looking forward to seeing him tackle this field.
Yeah, and the Pacific Classic has had some wild, jaw-dropping performances over the years. You think, behold, their flight line. Some that have won this race in ways you're just like, wow. And if there is one of those eyes bug out performances in this race, it probably comes from him, just from style make the fight, as they say, right? I mean, if he is freaky in this race and in 1.25 miles, he could do something special. But if he's not up to the 1.25 mile test, and I question it myself, especially at a short price, then it opens up the fierceness and journalism. There are 8 horses entered in this race, but there are 3 and then a big gap to the other 5 in this particular spot. Pace handicapping in this race is extremely difficult, as I try to do in the race of the week, because that's the race on class. Those 3 obviously are the class. As far as the pace goes, there are no dead set confirmed front runners in this field, but as many as 6 of the 8 want to sit like second, third all the time. So it's about jockey intent. Which rider wants the front in here and who's going to be aggressive? I wouldn't be surprised if Pratt is aggressive on Nisos and they just try to go in here, because the Baffert MO, when you think you have the best horse, is just to fire out of there. You don't want to concede the race to fierceness early, because when fierceness is running early in a race and getting his own way, that seems to be when he's most difficult. So I don't think you want to hand the race to fierceness on the rail under Johnny V. Expect Johnny V about 3 pass off the rail going into the clubhouse turn. When he has some inside speed like that, he'll try to float the field on the clubhouse turn and then cut that corner and take advantage of it. If they concede the front to fierceness, he becomes a different kind of hombre. Now, journalism, he's going to come from off the pace. As much as they talked over the course of this Triple Crown season and into the summer that he's got more pace than he's showing, he just doesn't. I mean, we watched enough of his races. When has he pressed the pace and gone on with it? He's going to be mid-pack in this race, and he's going to keep coming and coming and coming and grinding. And that's why at 1.25 miles, I think he's the horse to beat in here. Fierceness last time flopped at the end of the Whitney. I mean, he looked like, we'll see that when we talk about the Jockey Club Gold Cup, but he looked good as gone and then just kind of stopped. I don't know that I want him at 1.25 miles after a long road trip off of that last race. Nisos, both carrying 124 along with fierceness. 118, the 6-pound weight break for journalism over 1.25 miles. That's not going to hurt. And we know 1.25 miles is exactly in his wheelhouse.
Exactly. Yeah. And to your point about the pace, the one thing I would say is I feel pretty confident that Johnny V, the way he rides, is going to be aggressive from the rail, knowing he wants to get fierceness off the inside. Not a horse that likes to be caught down in a tricky spot inside. Maybe he's not on the lead per se, but I don't think he's going to be gambling that I'm saying I'm not going to be on the lead.
Right.
Nisos, I totally agree. I'd be surprised if he's not ridden forward. But I think the one that has to kind of go if he's in this race is Lure Him In, who has never gone close to this distance. I know he might not be fast enough or outclassed, but Edwin Gonzalez is a complete send jockey. They've gone faster in his recent races than they might here. He's the wild card in terms of pace. I think it's going to be honest either way. It could just be Nisos and fierceness if everybody's, if they just want to go. And I'm with you. I think journalism's the one I trust. We talk about the late pace ratings on Brisnet being a very good tool over and over here, but he's just consistently finishing, and we know he likes the 1.25 miles. Fierceness ran a career best race last year in the 1.25 miles in the Breeders' Cup Classic, but he didn't win. And we have questions about Nisos. I'll take the horse that I know is going to be finishing with an honest pace to run at.
Here's the determined kind of finish he had in the Haskell that we're hoping for over an extra furlong in the Pacific Classic.
And goal-oriented on the ladies in front. Gosker's making a race of it, and journalism is third now, continues the sustained run on the outside. They're at the top of the stretch in the Naira Betts Haskell. Gosker head in front, goal-oriented, trying to keep up. He's second. Journalism on the outside needs to quicken right now. 1 furlong to go. Gosker, goal-oriented inside, stubborn. Journalism, here he comes with those big, robust strides. Journalism, he's the headliner today.
Journalism in a mile and a quarter. Of course, he lost twice in a mile and a quarter to Sovereignty, but won the mile and 3/16 Preakness and was beating everybody not named Sovereignty over the mile and a quarter. 6 times a 3-year-old has won this race, again, inaugurated in 1991, including a horse who went straight from the Haskell to the Pacific Classic just a couple years ago in Arabian Night for Bob Baffert. So the path has been beaten down before. We've seen 3-year-olds have some success in this race. And again, that 6-pound weight break does not hurt. They get to the Breeders' Cup Classic, you get a little weight break in there for 3 as well. But certainly Fierceness has the talent and the experience. Nisos has the brilliance. And now Journalism gets his chance against the older horses. This should be a really fun edition of the Pacific Classic. Looking forward to that. We'll see. Is it Baffert? Is it Pletcher? Or is it the year of Michael McCarthy and Journalism? And look, a big performance on Saturday from any of these horses gets you the mile and a quarter over the track at Del Mar, where the Breeders' Cup Classic is coming back on Halloween weekend. So this is a big race in terms of the Classic division. We saw the gauntlet throw down last week by Sovereignty. He wasn't messing around in the Travers. So if you want to beat him come the fall, this is a good time to show your stuff in the Pacific Classic on Saturday. Okay, let's go to Kentucky Downs now and change gears here to the all-turf meet. It was a chalk fest on opening day Thursday at Kentucky Downs. We'll see day 2 of the meet if the prices come out to play. We're going to start things off in race number 9 with the Kentucky Downs Turf Sprint. This is a $2 million race. It's kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyway, the old TV show where Drew Carey used to say, you know, where the points don't matter. This is like where the purse doesn't matter. It's Kentucky Downs. I mean, it matters if it's in your pocket, but when you're handicapping these races looking forward and you say, my goodness, this horse just won a $2 million race, all the purses are insane there. They ran a $250,000 allowance on Thursday. So let's talk about this turf sprint in the context of being 6 furlongs, grade 2 company, a good field, but not get overly thrown into the quality of a race based on the purse. Howard Wolowitz hasn't run since the Saudi turf sprint back in February. This is a horse who was up and down throughout his career, but he's won here at Kentucky Downs, won the Franklin Simpson last year before going to the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. He's back in it for Jose D'Angelo off a long layoff. Kadim comes in for Charlie Hills from Europe, coming off a Group 2 effort there. An interesting, diverse field in here. You've got a filly and Pipsy taking on the boys. A little bit of everything in this turf sprint, Scott.
Yeah, fun race. Howard Wolowitz, the one to beat, but questions to answer, even though, like you said, he got the win over this course last year with a 4-wide move. Wasn't necessarily the best of trips. Kadim also, who you mentioned, the second choice in here, ran second over this course last year, picking up the pieces to Cogburn. I think it's wide open. I want a price in here, and I'm going to go with a California horse shipping in at number 8, Air Force Red. It's the son of Air Force Blue, no surprise. That's a 7-year-old Ridgeling. Hasn't been quite at his best in his last couple of races, but I think the cutback and this field might be to his liking, getting a nice mid-pack trip. Last out, pretty excusable effort, going 2 turns over the Del Mar side against first-level allowance foes. Was caught 3 wide on a day where the rails were out. The inside was the clear place to be. I'm hoping the presence of one Jose Ortiz will have this one in the right spot. I know Jose is going to try to make the most of not being able to compete for that jockey title against Irad, and hopefully this is a double-digit winner. I think he had multiple, maybe 3 or 4 winners on the card yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Jose Ortiz leading at Saratoga, but like you said, passing that up to ride for the money on Saturday here at Kentucky Downs. His mount is Air Force Red. Let's go back to see Air Force Red at his best earlier this year in the San Simeon on the West Coast.
It's Lovesick Blues, the leader. On the outside, Mucho Del Oro right up there, second. Then Charge for Gold, who's now third, coming toward the quarter pole. Anarchist is racing in fourth. Air Force Red is 5 lengths off the lead. Then comes Sorrento Sky and St. Anthony. They're at the top of the stretch. And it's Lovesick Blues clinging to a narrow advantage. Mucho Del Oro is asked to get by him. Lovesick Blues, though, keeps on going. And on the outside, here's Air Force Red. Air Force Red takes second, closing the gap on Lovesick Blues. Air Force Red, a gem of consistency, is up to take the lead. Nice performance from Air Force Red to win the San Simeon.
And the horse he beat there, Lovesick Blues, came back to win the Pat O'Brien on dirt already this meet at Del Mar. And he's headed towards the Breeders' Cup Sprint on dirt. His connection saying, we're just going to train up to the Breeders' Cup. So he ran down a good one in Lovesick Blues. This is a good, tough, competitive field in the Kentucky Downs Turf Sprint. Air Force Red, top choice in here for Scott. No Balls, a horse who's won Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint glory a couple years back in 2023 at Santa Anita. He's been scratched and entered a bunch of places around the country over the course of the past year. We'll see if Larry Ravelli keeps him in this race. Tyler Gaffleone, of course, has a strong record historically over the course there at Kentucky Downs. Very interesting betting race. It's lent itself to some chalk so far and through the first day of the meet at Kentucky Downs, but you can't expect that to continue throughout the whole meet. So hopefully we can catch a price in here. Scott's going with Air Force Red in the Turf Sprint. I will have some Kentucky Downs spot plays for you on the Saturday card in the blog section at expressbet.com and at news.first.com. Had a good day, opening day. We had 2 wins and a close second. A couple horses that were bet down heavily off the morning line, though. We can't control the value, unfortunately, the way things go in today's wagering sphere. But hopefully we can keep some good success going at Kentucky Downs on Saturday. To the Nashville Derby we go right now. It's a $3.5 million race. $1.5 million of this is through the Kentucky Thoroughbred Fund. And when you see includes in the condition, that means it's only for horses that are in that condition. So only Kentucky breds are running for $1.5 million of it. If you're not a Kentucky bred, you're running in a $2 million race. So if you ever see the conditions of a race, if it says added money, everybody's running for added money. Includes money means only horses who are state breds are running for that particular money. So the Kentucky breds are running for $3.5 million. Everybody else for $2 million. I think there's only 2 non-Kentucky breds in this race, including Wimbledon Hawkeye, who's coming in from overseas for James Owen. I believe the first U.S. starter for James Owen. Frankie Dettori's going to ride Wimbledon Hawkeye. He rode the winner of this race last year, so Frankie's looking for back-to-back winners of the Nashville Derby. This horse is the morning line favorite, I believe, in Nick Tamaro's morning line for the race. Wimbledon Hawkeye. Test Scores, one who's going to definitely take some money in here, coming off a win for Graham Motion, or coming off a third for Graham Motion in the Saratoga Derby, and the winner of the Belmont Derby 2 starts back. I know you like Test Score in here to have a good shot, Scott.
I do. 2 back in the Belmont Derby was the race he was pointing to after a strong runner-up effort in the American Turf to Zulu Kingdom. And last time out, even Graham Motion kind of in his quote said, we didn't really plan for this race, but he's doing well. We're going to run here in the Saratoga Derby Invitational. And he was beat by kind of similar horses. It kind of matters if you're pointing to spots sometimes, it turns out. My guess is he was looking to get to this spot and figured he wanted a race before it instead of not, knowing that it's a $3.5 million race. Either way, you look at the field, there's a lot of big names in here. A lot of them haven't proven it on turf. And I think Test Score has more than proven it on turf. He continues to get better here for Graham Motion. Third off the layoff. Should get a good ground-saving trip here over a course where some days that can be very important.
Let's go to Test Score's win in the Belmont Derby. 2 starts back and get a look at him under Manny Franco.
At the top of the stretch and is up to Tank. Another 3 lengths back. In the center comes Luther. World Beater is next. They're in the final furlong. Tank is in front. New Century. And now here's Test Score. And Test Score coming with a beautiful rally in the center and takes over, overhauling Tank. It will be Test Score, a convincing winner of the Belmont Derby Invitational.
That's the kind of race that wins at Kentucky Downs, that never-ending stretch, right? And you just keep grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding. Test Score with that similar kind of effort can be successful here in the Nashville Derby. They've got the word Derby in here because it's 3-year-olds, but Derby's pretty operable in terms of how we want to evaluate this race as well. 3 horses out of the Kentucky Derby that fans are very familiar with, Scott. Burnham Square, winner of the Grade 1 Bluegrass. Tistastic, winner of the Grade 2 Louisiana Derby. And Final Gambit, winner of the Jeff Ruby Grade 3 back in March. So 3 horses that already had major wins on the prep trail, ran through the Kentucky Derby, and now we're going on the turf here at 1 mile and 5/16. Distance should be pretty good for all 3. I don't think it's a big problem distance-wise for Tistastic and Burnham Square and Final Gambit. But there's another one in here that we didn't mention where the distance could be a bit of a question for me, and that's Sandman. But I'll tell you, when I watched Sandman work on the turf most recently, his work at Saratoga to get ready for this race, he gets over the grass, my friend. He looked really good. I am not a Sandman fan. I know there's a cult out there that loves Sandman and whatever. I've been knocking him all year long. So if I tell you he moved great over the turf, it's almost with a heavy heart, I have to admit, that he worked great over the turf. But I still don't think he's a 1 mile and 5/16 kind of horse. I think his final the final chapter written on Sandman is something next year at a turf mile at Keeneland, like War of Will, who won the Preakness for Cassie, turned out to be a really good turf miler. I think that's going to be Sandman's game. I don't think he can run 1 mile and 5/16 and finish with the same kind of kick. But I'll tell you this, he can get over the grass. I just don't think he's going to run this far. I'm against Sandman on Saturday. You got Hill Road in this race out of the Belmont. This race looks like the Travers without Sovereignty.
Yeah, somewhat disappointing. I won't get into it too much, but a couple of these you would have thought would want to run against, run for second or third in the Travers. It wouldn't have taken a Herculean effort to get some Grade 1 black type and makes a few bucks. But the $3.5 million, the upside of the not knowing how good I might be on the turf, has a couple of them pointed here. It makes this race intriguing. Hopefully it leads to value on horses that I know are true turf horses.
Yeah, like I mentioned, I think I said 3 Kentucky Derby alumni, 4, of course, out of the Kentucky Derby in this race. Final Gambits tried the turf. He didn't have a lot of success in behind test score in that most recent one. We've never seen Burnham Square on the turf, but his Damn Linda was a really good turf mare for the Witham. So we'll see if Ian Wilkes can stretch Burnham Square out to 1 mile and 5/16. He's another who hasn't finished with the same kind of robust figures, late pace figures, etc. And so Burnham Square is one who I'm not sure about the 1 mile and 5/16 for him as well in here. You've got the horse who's proven over the turf. He's got distance on his side, test score, good post position under Manny Franco. I think he is the horse to beat as well. Wimbledon Hawkeye in from England. We'll see what that one has first time going stateside again under Frankie Dettori. Interesting edition of the Nashville Derby. Let's go to Sunday now, back to Saratoga, back to the Classic Division in the Breeders' Cup. We'll finish things up with the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Feature race, $1 million purse, 1.25 miles. They've been running the Jockey Club Gold Cup since 1919, and you think about the horses who have won this race over the years. Cigar, John Henry, Affirmed. Going back further, the greats like Kelso and Forgo, the great man of war himself. It hasn't been that kind of race in recent years, Scott Shapiro, but this is more like it, at least for the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Longtime fixture at Belmont Park now on the end of the Saratoga meet. But when you've got Highland Falls in here, the defending champ, Sierra Leone, the headliner out of the Breeders' Cup Classic win last year, Mind Frame may be amongst the 1, 2, 3 ranked older horses in the country right now. Certainly any argument can be made for him off his win in the Stephen Foster. You've got a Breeders' Cup Classic winner in White Abarro. So the last 2 Breeders' Cup Classic winners in here. This is a good race. Heaven forbid Banishing take a week off. He's back after winning the Charlestown Classic last week. This is a really fun edition at 1.25 miles of the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Looking forward to this one.
It speaks to the quality of the older handicap division this year that this race came up this strong after kind of like you said, taking a big back seat to the Whitney particularly, but moving to Saratoga. I mean, I remember kind of in my 20s becoming a fan of racing, and even before that, watching videos of the past. This was a huge race at the fall meet at Belmont, and it's nice to see it with a nice, not only quality field, but some quantity in there as well and some depth. I think it's a fun edition of the race. And, you can make the case that a couple of these might not that necessarily be pointed to this race, thinking ahead to the Breeders' Cup, where maybe one or two of these are clearly, obviously would love to be in the Breeders' Cup, but this would be a massive win in its own right.
And to have this race of this quality on the same weekend that we see the Pacific Classic, it's really something to get both quality fields, to get 3 headline superstars in the Pacific Classic and at least 2 to 3 headline superstars here in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. A lot to look forward to. Highland Falls is the defending champion in this race. He won it last year by 4 lengths. Pyrenees Disarm were behind him that day. Both of them are 20-1 shots in this kind of race. It's a tougher test, but last time out in the Whitney at 13-1, Highland Falls ran a really good second in there between Disarm and Sierra Leone, who's going to vie for favoritism. So Highland Falls would be no shock to get a back-to-back score here. Let's go back to the Whitney. I know that's your choice.
He is right behind White Barrio as the field turns for home. Fierceness is the one to catch. He has a 3-length lead. Sierra Leone down the center of the track is coming with powerful strides, and Highland Falls is in there too. But it's Sierra Leone who takes the lead from last to first. Highland Falls trying his best. Sierra Leone has won the Whitney. Highland Falls.
Now, Highland Falls trying to get into some rare air, being a back-to-back winner of the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Not done since Tonalist a little over a decade ago. Flat out, Curlin also did it since the 2000s. But Scott, even if he gets this win and becomes a 2-time winner, he's only got 3 more attempts to match Kelso's 5 in this race. Unbelievable. 5-time winner of the Jockey Club Gold Cup. He's not reaching Kelso territory, but he can get the Tonalist on Saturday. How's he going to pull it off?
Well, I think a couple of things. The pace was absolutely perfect for Sierra Leone in that race, and I say it will be contentious again. You've got Phileas Fogg, and then you've got his buddy Contrary Thinking back in here. Now, last time it played out ideally, and I say that because Contrary Thinking did not break that well, and there was other horses ridden like they were going to be speed, and then Dylan Davis did what he was told to do and came up and made it a very contentious pace. In addition, maybe Phileas Fogg will attempt to outspeed Contrary Thinking, but my guess is we've seen Phileas Fogg in the past sit just a bit off. Knowing what Contrary Thinking is going to do, maybe it slows down the pace a little, or maybe the contention makes it a little less of a setup for the way out the back closer in Sierra Leone. You add to that the 1.25 miles, which I think we know is Sierra Leone is fine with, but I also happen to think that Highland Falls is better as the distances get longer. I think this is his race, third off the layoff here. He's never run worse than second in his 2 starts here, of course, one of them the Whitney, one of them the win in this race last year.
Mindframe was favored at 9-5 in Stephen Foster head-to-head with Sierra Leone. He beat him by a length that day. That probably means he's the favorite on Sunday. Mindframe will be bet the favoritism in here. Why not? He's run 7 times, 5 wins, 2 seconds. But this will be his first attempt at a 1.25 miles since the Belmont last year. Remember the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga, 1.25 miles, not 1.5 miles. And he had that race won and started drifting all over the place. And Dornoch came back and kind of nosed him under the wire that day to win by a half length. Does Mindframe drift in the stretch again? Is he a 1.25 miles horse? How do you think the way that he finished up in the Foster, the lead was diminishing by a little bit at 1.125 miles? Can he be beaten at 1.25 miles? Is that kind of his kryptonite? Like we're thinking maybe Nisos can be beaten at 1.25 miles? Is it the best distance for Mindframe?
Question needs to be answered, and that's why, I wouldn't necessarily bet him to win or make him my top pick. But I've learned to respect this Colt, who I thought last year, JP, to your point, had a little bit of the mental game to figure out, but he's come back and been a better horse. I didn't think the Gulfstream Park Mile was an awesome effort. In fact, I thought he could have gotten beat by Steel Sunshine, but his last 2 races have been very good. I think the 1 length margin of victory last time, a little misleading. He was much the best in there. It's all a matter of a wagering situation. If he's going to be 9-5 or so, I want to make him do it. But I think he can do it, and I think he can cement himself as a serious contender for the Classic, the Breeders' Cup Classic, that is. But again, I think the price on Highland Falls will just be so much better.
Race 5 on the card Sunday. They moved it up for Fox broadcast. Big Fox will broadcast live the Jockey Club Gold Cup. So in order to hit the TV time slot that was available, they moved the race up earlier in the card. Early post times this weekend at Saratoga too, because they're running 11, 12 big cards or whatever before the sunset. So earlier starts to the Saratoga card. Race number 5 is going to come up, I believe, in the 2 o'clock window for the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Race number 5 on Sunday. Should be a good one. That's going to wrap up our podcast. We went a little long this week, but it's as good a racing week as we've had throughout the course of the summer when you look at the various venues. Big-time racing in Kentucky, big-time racing in New York, big-time racing in California with the Pacific Classic. Scott, I can't wait for this one. You get the final word.
Really excited. I'll even stay up past my bedtime for the Pacific Classic tomorrow night. Nah, just kidding, but little after 9 Eastern. We'll get less than 24 hours later, the next race to kind of see where we're at as we start to think about the Breeders' Cup Classic a little bit more.
All right. On behalf of Scott, everybody with First Bet and Express Bet, and our host emeritus, Jeff Siegel, get well, Jeff. Have a great weekend, everybody.